Afternoon, parents. Hope you're having a great day. Hey, we wanted to share a little information with you about what to expect when you come to parent-teacher conferences tomorrow and Wednesday. I know I shared a lot of this information in a letter a few weeks ago and also in our school newsletter, but there's some new information here we want to share with you and also just help build your understanding and background knowledge. So, as we talk today and talk about these new progress reports, there's some important things we want you to understand. One of the first things we're always asked is, why are we switching to a standards-based progress report? What's the difference? So to help with that, I think of two things. I think one, when we think of standards-based progress reports, it allows us to completely and very specifically identify what it is we want the students to learn by the end of the year. Traditionally, you may get a math grade that says an A, but you may not have a real great understanding of what the student needs to get better at. Using a standards-based progress report, you can clearly see where it is in their learning that they need to grow. For example, just a random one in math, let's talk about this. I can divide to show how to share a set of objects equally. So, that's a very specific standard that if a student was struggling, you would understand what it is that they need to improve upon. A second area for us to talk about is the social skills and life habits. Some of the most important things we do at Griswold Elementary are teach our students our social skills and life habits. So we have an entire category that are focused on that, much like they are with our curriculum standards. So over here, you'll see some examples of that: respecting staff, respecting peers, following direction, turning work in on time. So going to a standards-based report card, there's a lot of reasons that it makes sense for us to do at the elementary, but these are two areas that I think are important for us to touch on. Next, I think something else that is important for you to understand is just the progression of learning. What do we mean by that? So, that we are not averaging the numbers anymore. Instead, we're looking at the most consistent and most recent levels of performance for our students with our progress reports. An example of that: if we're assessing a student on a standard and they've scored a 1, 2, 3, 3, and a 3, and you average that, that would say that they've got a 2.4. We're no longer going to be doing it that way. Instead, we're going to look at the most consistent and most recent levels of performance. So if you look at this, say that there were assessments given over 2 weeks. So the teacher worked really hard to understand where the student was at. It may have happened through a traditional test. It may have happened through conferring, daily work, things like that. But you'll see the progression of their learning. By the end of those 2 weeks, they were starting to really understand. So they would be given a 3. So, another important thing that I think that I want you to understand is that these are no longer grades. And what I mean by that is, when we come back here and look at the progression of learning, you'll see its numbers, but I want to talk about what that means because it's much different than a letter grade. A 1 means that they can demonstrate at grade level with intensive support. So for example, the student isn't able to do it without the teacher being there to really help guide them. They don't have any great background knowledge or understanding of how to do it yet, so the teacher is supporting them at a higher level. Traditionally, whenever we teach something new, most times all students are at this area. Now, as the student starts working and digging in and things start to make sense to them, it would be that they start to get to a 2. A 2 means they have some support. The teacher might work with them for a little bit, release them on their own, check back in with them, and then see where they're at, and then allow the student to make corrections and mistakes. That means they'd be at a 2 with their level of understanding. A 3 means they can independently do it at grade level without any support. And a 4 means they've exceeded that grade level standard. So not only can they do it without support, but now they've done it in a way that they can, or that they are doing work at a different grade level on that specific standard. A 3 is where we want students to be at by the end of the year. The 4 will be difficult to achieve. Continuing on, some other things that are important for you to know. When we look at this overview of the scoring, this is a rubric that we're using. It's a very generic rubric, but it allows you to understand what it is and how our thinking is working. So, if a student is scoring a level 3, that's for students who are independently able to meet the standards. They're able to perform at level 3 and understand and use concepts and or vocabulary and or skills independently. They understand not just the what, but can correctly explain and demonstrate the how and the why. So again, if they're able to do a 3, they're able to do those things on their own. Lastly, I hope you know and understand that we look forward to seeing you this week, and that teachers will not have all of these filled in at this time. It's a progression that we'll be doing over the year, especially since we're starting this at the second semester. You won't see a completed report card, so we'll still have the report card that we used previously kept. Any questions, feel free to reach out. We look forward to seeing our buildings this week.